Hello, I am Julian from the Department of Journalism. Today we will be looking at new criticism, which was a critical movement which began in the first half of the 20th century, to be exact in 1941, and it went up to 1960s. We will be seeing a brief overview of the new criticism movement. So, new criticism was an influential movement in the literary criticism in the mid 20th century. Okay, it was in the mid 20th century, which stressed the importance of focusing on the text itself. So, what was the important feature of new criticism? So, new critics believed that the text was a complete entity in itself. It should be studied as such, and no reference to the past or the context of the text or the personal history of the author should be studied when we are referring to a text. A text is an organic entity and it should be studied as such. And so was the notion of the new critics. Alright. It emphasized close reading, particularly of poetry, to discover how a work of literature functioned as a self contained, self referential aesthetic object. So, according to the new critics, a text was complete in itself and it should not be studied on any other context rather than the organic unity of the text. Alright. So, so they believe that literature functions as a self-contained, self-referential aesthetic object. We should not be looking for references elsewhere rather than inside the text itself. And it's a complete entity. And the like, what was the intention of the author? How does it affect the reader? Both of these were truly rejected, were completely rejected by the new critics. And these two factors were known as the intentional fallacy and affective fallacy. So, what is intentional fallacy? So, according to the new critics, if you are a critic or a reader trying to analyze a text and you are referring to that text or a feature of a text to the intention of intention of the author who have written it. So you are trying to analyze the text and you are trying to understand what was the intention of the author. You are highly mistaken. You should only analyze the text, the intention of the author, the mood of the author, the personal background of the author, and his psychology, etc., is irrelevant to the context of the text. The text is a complete entity and it should be studied as such. And so was the notion of the new critics. They rejected the intentional fallacy, that is, the intention of the author or whatever the author was thinking. They rejected that part. As a critic, you should be only studying the text. Okay. And then comes affective fallacy. So, what is affective fallacy? Affective fallacy means that while you are reading a text or while you are reading something, while you are reading a poetry, while you are reading a poem or a novel or a short story, etc. And the emotions you may get through reading it or the moods that you may get through reading the text, all of it should be irrelevant when it comes to criticizing the text. That is the affective fallacy. That if the mood of a text or the emotions provoked by the contents of a text is uh, is the background for your criticism on that text, you are doing what is called the affective fallacy. Okay, so you should be into a more objective analysis of a text. You should be analyzing the text on the form or the features of the text, the literary features of the text, the organic unity of the text. The emotions generated by the text is irrelevant to new critics. And if you are highly subjective or if you are analyzing the text on the basis of the emotions generated by the text, you are committing what is known as the affective fallacy. Alright. So, new critics rejected both of this type of interpretation, that is intentional fallacy and affective fallacy. And for them, only the text remains, only the text is relevant, right? So they believed that it is a self-contained, self-referential aesthetic object. Okay. The movement derived its name from John Crow Ransom's 1941 book, The New Criticism. So this is the seminal work of New Criticism movement, that is The New Criticism, published in 1941, and J.C. Ransom, Crow Ransom published it. Other major figures of New Criticism are William Emerson, William K. Wimstad, then Alan Tate, etc. Okay, all of these critics belong to the school of New Criticism. So, the key concepts of New Criticism. First one is close reading. So, uh, the the way in which new critics analyze a text is known as close reading. So, it does not mean that you have to read the text closely, but you are analyzing the text. Okay, right. Close reading, the careful, sustained interpretation of a brief passage of a text. It emphasizes the single and the particular over the general, affected by close attention to individual words, the syntax, the order in which the sentences unfold ideas, as well as the formal structures. So, you are not analyzing the text for its complete version, or you are not generally analyzing the text. Instead, you are going to look into the particulars in close reading. So, if you are employing close reading in analyzing a text, you will be looking for literary features like such as alliteration, assonance, how the words are placed, how the phrases are coinciding, how the syntax of the text is going, how the paragraphs are placed, and how the content is expressed through all these features. All right, you are merely looking at the text, the organic unit of the text. It is a kind of formalism, if you can say that. You are looking at the formal aspects of a text. But new criticism is not formalism. That is another thing. So you are looking for the specific words or phrases, passage, the arrangement of the passage, etc. So that is the that is when it comes to close reading, right? So textual unity. This is another major feature of new criticism. Textual unity. New criticism argues that each text has a central unity. The responsibility of the reader is to discover this unity. So this is where new criticism differs from formalism. According to formalists, okay, and you can say Russian formalists, etc., and there were other schools of formalism also. According to the formalists, the form and the content of the text are separate, right? You have the content of the text, which is the matter written by the author or the matter intended by the author, and the form of the text. Okay, when it comes to poetry, you are writing about an idea or a concept. You are writing a poem about an idea or a concept, and when you are writing the poem, you take a specific form for that idea or content, right? You are taking a content, it may be a shapeless content, and you are putting it into a form or a specific structure. So form and content are separate, and it should be analyzed separately. This was the view of formalists. So according to them, a form is a separate entity and the content is a separate entity. But according to new critics, there is no differentiation between the form and the content. The form and content are inseparable units. They form an organic unity. There should not be a study based on form or content. The text should be analyzed on itself. Alright. That is the idea of new criticism. That is, there is a textual unity. That there is no difference between form or content of a text, and both the form and content are organically synthesized in the text. Alright. New criticism argues that each text has a central unity. The responsibility of the reader is to discover this unity. So, the reader is to discover this unity, the unity in the form and content of a text, and they should not be looking separately at the form or the content, right? So, let us look at other features of new criticism. Key concepts. Ambiguity. So, this is one of the most important things of new criticism. William Emerson, a key figure in new criticism, wrote a book called Seven Types of Ambiguity, which was first published in 1930. In his book, in this book explored different types of ambiguity that he found in poetry and how they could enrich the reader's appreciation of the work. So, what is ambiguity? So, ambiguity is a textual feature, and when you read a text or when you read a poem or when you read a line, if there is a confusion in the meaning of if the line is signifying or it has a feature known as plurisignification, that you are reading something and it could have multiple meanings, right? Then the text poses an ambiguity, and according to Emerson, it gives a specific brilliance to the work that you are referring to multiple things using a single line. That is a basic understanding of the ambiguity. It could be situational ambiguity or structural ambiguity, etc. There are 7 types according to Emerson. So when you are reading something, if it gives you multiple ideas at the same time, the text is to be regarded of high quality. All right, according to the new critics. So ambiguity is a feature analyzed by new critics. Then another feature analyzed by new criticism, or the feature they are looking for, is paradox. Okay. Cleon Brooks, an active member of the new critical movement. Cleon Brooks is also a major leader of the new critical movement. Outlined the use of reading poems through paradox as a method of critical interpretation. So he argued for reading poems or analyzing poems on the basis of paradox. Paradox in poetry means that tension at the surface of a verse can lead to apparent contradictions and hypocrisies. So, what is a paradox? For example, we can analyze the statement, child is the father of a man. So, that sentence poses a paradox. You are saying that child is the father of a man. It should be on the opposite. So, paradox are statements or situations like this that poses contradictory ideas or ideas which may not be true in itself, but it leads to certain other ideas. Okay, so in the case of a poem, paradox in poetry means that tension at the surface of a verse can lead to apparent contradictions and hypocrisies. So this is also a feature of analyzed by new critics. If you are writing a line which is paradoxical in nature, it leads to certain thought process in the reader's mind. So they are looking for another idea. So it may not be a lie as such, but it leads to certain other ideas. Right. Another feature, when you have already analyzed paradox, then obviously we will come to irony. Okay. Irony is used by new criticism as a literary device to give literature a sense of complexity and deviation. So it gives a complexity to literature. In new criticism, irony is used as a figure of speech where the speaker's implication is partially said and partially not said, almost making the reading subjective. So, according to the new critics, how irony should be employed in a text? So, you are saying something. A character is saying a dialogue, and only half of what he intends is said. Other half should be interpreted by the author. The other half should be interpreted by the reader. Okay, so you are only reading half of what the author is intending, or it leads to multiple signification. So there are other types of irony. Okay, out of context, there could be dramatic irony that you may know the fate of a character. Okay, you may know the end of a character very well, but you are still reading the work, and the character is oblivious to the fact that he is going to end this way or other. Okay, there is tragic irony also, which is related to this, and the character may be going to different circumstances, oblivious to the fact that he may be meeting a sad end, right? But you already know this. So this is a type of irony. Okay. So ironical situations are like this, that a character is playing something, a character is doing something, he is oblivious to certain facts, but the reader is knowing what is he doing. Okay, he is making himself stupid. The character is being portrayed as stupid because you already know what he is up to. Okay, but he is still doing it, right? But the irony employed in new criticism is of a different level. It comes to what is said and what is not said. Okay, what is said and what is not said, and through it you analyze a meaning which is not obviously stated, which is not apparent in the text. Alright, that was it. We analyzed the key features of the new critical movement. Thank you.